Imperial Lounge presents a night called
Reggae Dancehall by the Beach. To be held at Imperial Lounge, 2 to 14 High Street, Margate Seafront, Kent, CT9 180. To be held on the first Saturday of each month. Your host DJ Matt. Also rotating DJs, Roddy Boone, DJ Happy,
and Younger General.
Doors open 8 p.m. till late. Free entry all night. Music policy, reggae, dancehall, and a touch of soul. On the first Saturday of each month. Reggae Dancehall by the Beach. At the Imperial Lounge Margate. Do remember, you can also get VIP and Shisha booking. More info on the World Jam Global website. That's www.worldjamglobal.com. Also www.imperialloungemargate.co.uk.
See you there.
It's the right thing you doing. Rebellious like Malcolm. 1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ, or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday, or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, doublets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
You see, it's here. You see. New feature coming from World Jam Global Radio in 2018. World Jam Global Top 10. To vote for your favorite artist, go to twitter.com/World Jam Global or facebook.com/World Jam Global. So pick the right track where you want to have in your car, at your house, a rock. At them.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime.
It's another big good evening going out from me, Kervin Julian, on Issues Today, live on World Jam Global Radio. Stand by for another live exclusive.
Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. In the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young and foolish to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the street. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about beat no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent, I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit. Now sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time.
Today we're going to be live with some friends. We've got Yolanda McNear live. We have Kay Smith and a mother-in-law, Matilda Smith.
Already did my time.
Apologies, Anne-Marie Grant won't be on this week's show. She's been put forward to September the 15th, so watch out with that one. And unfortunately, we send our apologies also for Tracy Knight. His blood pressure went through the roof last night and she's currently in hospital, and she also cannot attend today's show.
With my hands and very quick on my feet, I was swimming in women.
I want to give a big thank you to all of you who follow us and listen from around the world. It's another edition of Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio. And the feature and the subject matter of today's show is Something in Common. That's right, these women have all got something in common. A partner, a child, or a loved one whose life was stolen, killed by cops.
Did my time, I paid for my crime.
And through localized social media networks,
I paid for my crime.
And in particular, POST, Protect Our Stolen Treasures. They've found a common ground to fight for justice.
I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own. So
very shortly, we're going to be talking to the women themselves.
That's why.
So get yourself relaxed.
I had to repent, I must admit.
And get ready for the show to come.
Shit. Now I'll sit back and think it over since I've gotten older. The life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so numb.
This is truly the only international, outernational.
Me and Billy the Kid.
Police brutality, killed by cops, unlawful killing, Black Lives Matter show going out around the world.
Real alligator, especially all you haters. Already did my time.
And you're getting it here live.
Already did my time.
Good gosh.
Time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life.
Now, bearing in mind last week we had some outside interference.
Wow.
Our dear friends at Facebook found the topic a bit too hot and decided to mute the sound.
Trying to cope with this.
We're just hoping that we don't get the same treatment today.
Trying to cope with this living here. Yes, I am.
But please, at any time, if you notice that the sound goes or the picture goes or something happens, please message me straight away so that I'm aware of it and I can respond, react, reboot, start again and come back at them. Because we don't give up the fight here. Your fight is our fight.
Our Father who art.
My name is Kervin Julian. This is Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio. Going out worldwide.
On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into.
Looking good so far.
Bring us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
We have our guests who are waiting in the wings, chomping at the bit. Can't wait to get their teeth into this and get their stories out to you.
Drive-by killing, stop them.
We know there are many people around the world suffering just as these women are, and we take our hats off to them, we salute them.
Let them cast the first stone.
And we give thanks that they have the courage to step forward and share their hurts and their pain,
to vote and live like an ordinary citizen,
so that you and I can have a better understanding.
Friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide, and put down those knives
as to why our stolen treasures, our golden treasures, are being stolen each day. Don't forget, if you've got a story that you want to share with us on Issues Today, just contact me, direct message me. We'll be with you in a while. So first and foremost, let me just remind you that my name is Kervin Julian. This is Issues Today, and we are live on World Jam Global Radio. And we have my guests, Yolanda McNair, Kay Smith, and Matilda Smith, waiting in the wings to speak to you. So first and foremost, let me just introduce a guest that I've had on here a few times before, somebody who I regard as a friend and definitely a comfort to those who are struggling and suffering with something that she has had some time to endure herself. Yolanda McNair, good evening.
How you doing today?
Well, I'm fine. It's a sunny day here in the UK. I'm not sure what you're subjected to out there stateside, but it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing, Yolanda?
I'm doing great. It's nice and sunny in the 80s here in Detroit.
If you just want to remind our audience, because we've had you on the show on a couple of occasions before, for yourself and also supporting other groups of women who are going through like-minded situations. Just remind our audience of your lost loved one and the reasons for your campaigning and activism.
Sure. My name is, of course, Yolanda McNair. I'm the mother of Adacia Miller. My daughter was killed by a Detroit police officer while he was off duty at his home at the park one day before her 25th birthday. My child's going out to celebrate her life ended in her death. The police department acted as though it was a joke. It was nothing important. The city ignored it, dragged out my daughter's case until the city went into bankruptcy and then suspended the case. And then this worthless prosecutor that we have here, funny enough, her name is Kim Worthy. We call her Kim Worthless. She closed my daughter's case while it was suspended. And we found out on a Sunday night during the news. She didn't even have the decency to notify us that she was closing the case. To add insult to injury, she cleared the officer of all wrongdoing, though my daughter was shot with his service weapon at his home, at his party.
We were also to discover that there was two crimes that officer could have been charged with. In possession of his weapon whilst at a party and drinking alcohol, I believe, was one. And also dancing is considered a sport, and carrying your weapon in a sporting activity is also illegal for an officer, I believe. And I think Jerry Summers updated us on that. And yet he was charged with nothing at all.
Nothing. And we've already seen just recently the video of the federal officer doing a...
Wow, we're losing you, Yolanda. I'm not sure where you are, but we're losing your signal. So we'll try and obviously we're going to wait, and you're going to come back to us very shortly, I should imagine. But until then, let's move on and let's introduce one of our other guests that we're going to have on today, and that's Kay Smith. How are you doing, Kay?
Hi, good. How are you?
We're fine. So this is the first time that I'm having the pleasure of speaking with you, although I had a very short conversation with you prior to the show starting. So if you want to just tell our audience, and obviously informing me as well, a little bit about you, who you are, where you are, and the reason why you're on the show, please.
I'm Kay Smith. My husband was Jaffert Smith, and he was murdered by the St. Paul Police May 9th, 2016. He was killed by 4 officers. He was shot 19 times. They fired 52 rounds at him. And it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. My husband had some mental health problems, and he was having, the friend that he was with said that he was having mental health issues that evening. We don't know for sure. The officers claimed that when they arrived on the scene, that he shot a woman in the face and then opened fired at the officers. The police reports that we got after the fact don't back up the story that the media told. And in fact, the second officer on the scene said that when he arrived on the scene, he thought that the first officer on the scene was the one that fired his weapon and hit the woman. And she also now claims that was what happened. But she was a known drug addict in the city of St. Paul, and felony a victim at the time of the incident, and since changed what's going on. She ran into the firing or the gunfire to try to save him at the time of the incident. So it didn't back up the story that was told to the media. The story changed multiple times, but after they shot him while he was running away, he was on the ground, and about 3 minutes later they had called for a rifle and then fired on him again. So a shotgun, actually, they fired at him again. And so that's how he ended up dying, was the second round of shots into him. They shot his bottoms of his feet. They shot him in the back, in the butt, in the brain, under the armpits. So he was murdered. And at the worst part probably was, aside from his murder, was then how we as a family were then treated as criminals, and our whole private life was publicized in the media. The way we were informed, his mother almost, she was informed by herself. She has health issues, and I was at work, and I was, basically just told to leave work and separated. We were separated from each other and not allowed to have any support from each other to deal with the news that we were given. They left his body with his pants around his ankle for over 9 hours baking in the sun in the backyard. About 2 hours after we were notified, we saw a picture of his body full of bullets, with his pants around his ankles on Facebook. So they didn't tell us. He was killed at 3:00 in the morning on Mother's Day. They didn't tell us for over 25 or 28 hours. We found out, actually, no, more than that, 36 hours. We found out the next day, after they said that it took them that long to identify him, even though he'd been in the system. So it should have been a really easy process of identifying him. They basically, came and just, victimized us again after taking him. And then the media doesn't ever they didn't give us a chance. We didn't want to talk to the media. So instead they talked to a lot of people that didn't know him at all and published stuff that wasn't true about him. Found the worst picture they could possibly find instead of letting us, give a picture of him that was halfway decent. I mean, they just really put you through the worst thing that they could possibly do after they already make you go through the worst thing. And then I guess, that's about it. I mean, it took us 9 months or so to get and many lawyers and a lot of fighting, with the system to get any record of what happened. The police were found, the grand jury hearing was held, and none of them were held accountable. One of the officers who did kill Jaffert actually had been involved prior in 2 incidences. One he had been confronted by a white man at Walmart and a gun put in his face, and they managed to apprehend that man without firing any weapons or doing anything to that guy other than taking him into custody. A second incident, they actually had another black man that they shot but didn't kill. Then the third incident that this guy was involved in, they actually killed Jaffert. And then one of the other officers actually was involved in another police shooting, Guillermo Canis. And so both of the 2 officers out of the 4 had been involved in prior incidents, and nothing had been done at that time. And so it finally ended up in the death of a black man. And I guess that's kind of it.
Can you just clarify for us what, if any, relationship that Jaffert had with this Mrs. Flowers, who they claimed that he had shot? Had he shot her?
We actually didn't know her at all. She claimed that they had some type of a relationship for a while, or for a short period of time prior to the incident, but no one in our family had ever met her before. I didn't know her. Jaffert had, like I said, some mental health stuff he was dealing with, and so we believe that it was some type of a drug connection, something like that. But it wasn't a close relationship. She'd never been introduced to anybody in our family. And as far as we know, it was a relationship of a couple weeks at most, a friendship of a couple weeks. She claimed to be a close friend, but like I said, none of his close friends or us as sister, brother, mother, me, none of us had ever met her.
Now, you was his wife, right?
I was his wife, yes.
And how long were you married?
We were married 5.5 years when he died. We were together 8.5.
So you'd known him a long time.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to come back to you shortly because I also want to get into, and I laugh, as you notice, I choked too, because at one point you were arrested and charged with a felony in an attempt or in a threat to kill the 4 officers that had killed Japheth. But we're gonna come back to that in a while because I think some people might just want to take their hat off to you and salute you for your bravery and your courage.
That's something that's an open case too, so I have to be careful about what I'm talking about with that, but we come back to that.
We'll come back to that in a while. But
Okay.
also with you is Japheth's mother, Matilda Smith. Are you there, Matilda?
Yes. How are you, Karen?
We're fine, Matilda. I've seen you pop up and down on my Facebook over recent weeks and months. It's great finally to meet you and speak with you.
Great to meet you.
Let's just introduce you and tell the audience a little bit about you and your connection to Japheth, and then we'll take it on a little bit further.
My name is Matilda Smith, and my name is Matilda Smith, and I am the mother of Japheth Smith. And he was killed by St. Paul police. BCA come to me May 10th, 2016. Was it May 11th? Yeah, May 11th, 2016, to report that they had shot my son many times. They beat it on my door and scared the life out of me. Coming in telling me that Japheth Smith had been shot many times. They couldn't tell me how many times, but they had a smirk on their face telling me that he had got shot many times. And I asked them why, because I couldn't hold myself up then. I think I went through an anxiety attack. I don't know what I went through, but I was falling and I couldn't hold up. But I'll never forget the smirk on their face as they were telling me all the times that he had got shot. And they told me he shot a girl. And I asked him, who is this girl? And they asked me, do I know this Angel Flowers? And I said, no. Well, they say he shot her right in front of the officers and they opened fire on him because they were afraid of their lives. I told him I don't know any Angel Flowers. And is she dead? And I was really worried. And he said, no, she's in the hospital. I immediately wanted to talk to her to find out what had happened. And I wanted to know where she was. Then they told me she was a drug person and she wasn't credible. And so they didn't think of her as a credible person to talk to. And so he started asking me questions about Japheth, and I told him, where we'd come from. And I told him, and he immediately started doing a background check on me. And why, I don't know that, but I said he had a wife and I needed to call her right away. So they didn't want to meet Kate with me. They wanted to meet her alone to tell her. They didn't want me to tell her what had happened. They wanted to tell her and they wanted to meet her alone. So when I called Kay, they would say, don't tell her, just tell her that we wanted to see her. And she kept saying, why? and his job, what is wrong? And I kept telling her, I need to talk to you. Can you take off? And she said, just tell me why. I think she felt what I was trying to tell her. And she said, where's Jock? And I said, Kay, there's someone here that needs to talk to you. And they took the phone and said, Kay, can you meet us somewhere? And then they talked with her and they met her, I think, at her mother's house. But this whole thing has been a real trauma. I've been traumatized from it. And anxiety, I've really had to seek counseling from all this and go into prayer. I had to really go back and really prayer and worship really hard, harder than I ever had to. And it's been rough on this whole family. Jafford had a sister and brother. He had a child and a grandchild born right after he died. So it hadn't been easy for none of us, nor had it been easy for his wife. Mentally, we have been struggling. And there are other mothers that are going through the same thing. We have mothers right here in St. Paul. Monique Doty, nephew, Marcus Golden, Kim Jones, Handy, Cordell Handy, her son. We've had Map Kong. We've had just so many here in Minnesota, and we've had Donna Chisesi, Jonathan Victors, Shiloh Phelps, Body Phelps, her son is Body Phelps, Arcelie Martinez, her son Junior. It's been all over, and no one is exempt from this. No matter what your color is, if you think you're exempt, you're sadly mistaken. They are killing us by the dozens, and every day they are killing us. And they're they're getting away with it. I don't understand the cities that, these killings are illegal. I don't understand the states and cities that justify these killings. These are illegal killings.
That's very powerful, Matilda, and we're gonna have a lot more to discuss with you very shortly. Just before we carry on, I just wanted to make a very quick announcement, and I'm not sure if I've already missed it, whether it's today or yesterday. Maybe Yolanda can update us, but there is a protest demonstration, justice for Dylan Taylor and Patrick Harmon. Gina Thane asked me to give that a mention on today's show, so I feel obliged to do so. We wish them well in their protest, and I hope that they accomplish what they set out to get from it. But I'm not sure if it's today or if it was yesterday, Yolanda. Was it today or yesterday, the Dylan Taylor?
I do believe it's today.
Okay. So, yes, Gina did ask me to give it a mention, so I thought that I would. But before we come back to you again, Yolanda, and the rest of the women that you've worked so hard with, let's just flip back to Matilda a minute, because I want to try and find out what kind of a kid Jafford was, and then I want to flip back down to Kay and to find out what kind of a husband he was. I mean, earlier you guys said that he was going through a mental health related issue, and we already understand that the United States of America Police Force, Law Enforcement Office, have absolutely no training when it comes to managing or handling people that have mental health related issues, which is a very sad indictment on them as an organization and infrastructure of a unit that's supposed to be policing the nation. But what was Jafford like as a kid growing up? Was there mental health related issues throughout his growing up, or was that something that took on settled itself?
Jafford Smith had mental illness from 6 years old on up. But Jafford Smith was loved by so many people, and he loved people. He couldn't hurt a soul, I tell you. He had a heart of gold. And all of his nieces and nephews, And all the children that had ever been around him loved him. And that's all that ever hung around him were children. Everybody loved him. His friends, he had a lot of friends that loved him. I mean, he was just a lovable person, and he was a giver. He's always giving something. And he gave to people. Most people he gave to were the people that were like him, that had problems and had struggled with mental illness. Jafford Smith was demonized so badly that the people that knew him didn't relate to what they were saying about him. They said that wasn't the person that they know. You know, they didn't understand the media and the news, how they demonized him, because he was nothing that they say he was. You know, he was a great person, really had a big heart, loved everyone. And he could never kill. He could never do what they did. He could never do anything that they say he did.
I mean,
this great person altogether.
Through those years of struggling with mental health, was Jafford known to the police? Was there convictions of aggression or violence?
Yes, he was. Yes, and I'm gonna tell you something. He was like a person that had been in war, that come home shell-shocked. He was police shocked. I mean, he was afraid of them. And he would always come home running from them. And he always say they was after him. Lots of times I didn't believe him. Right during months before he got killed, he'd run home all the time and say, "Mama, they're trying to kill me. They're after me. They're trying to kill me." I looked at it that if he was going through a mental breakdown, but I finally realized that he was not lying. He was telling the truth on them. They were trying to kill my baby. They were trying to kill my baby. They had been after him. They arrested him. I'm talking like every other week. They would stop him and arrest him and take him and lock him up. I mean, and let him out. And they kept doing it. They would lock him up, let him out. One time we called there and they said, "We're gonna hold him. He's having a mental breakdown. He's having a breakdown. We're gonna hold him for a while." And they let him go. So I know that they knew him. I know that.
Was he?
They picked on him, though. I'm telling you, he would really go into those mental breakdowns when the police would bother him, though. Those were the times that he had those breakdowns. Most of the time, the police was messing with him.
You know, mental health is a very intricate, complicated, and difficult thing for people to understand if they don't know it. But
that's right.
But would you have expected law enforcement officers to have a better understanding of what they were dealing with rather than provoking somebody who struggled with mental health?
They always provoked and triggered him. They always did it. And I didn't understand it. You'd think they'd be trained for this, but they're not.
Were the police aware that Jafford had a mental health illness?
Oh, yeah. I think they were. I think they was aware of it.
Can I step in for just a second? Because for sure they were aware, only because St. Paul is not a very big city. I mean, it's a large city and is as far as considered a big city in Minnesota, but the Black community in Minnesota is not very large. And we had specifically called, because the hospital recommended at one point that I call the police when he was having a mental health episode. I wanted him to go to the hospital and I couldn't figure out how to get him to the hospital. They recommended, he was seeing things and he was hallucinating and thought people were like, someone was out to get him. So I had called the hospital to say, what do I do? Because I'm really worried about him. This has never happened before. And at least four officers showed up that night, St. Paul officers. And this was within a year of his death. This was within about 8 months or so of his death. And they said they were going to take him to the hospital. He should have gone to the hospital. He was definitely dangerous to himself. And he was seeing like people in trees with guns, like in camouflage that were not there, and pointing them out, like physically pointing them out to the officers and to myself. And the police officers swore that they were going to take him to the hospital for an evaluation. But instead they dropped him off down the road at a gas station and never took him to the hospital after promising me that's what they were going to do. So the St. Paul police knew him. They knew who he was. I mean, I can't guarantee that night that they could identify him at 3:00 in the morning, but they had spotlights on him. They had their dash cameras were activated. They had, so I don't know that they couldn't. I mean, I don't believe that they didn't know who he was that night. I don't believe it took 2 days to identify who he was. I don't believe their version of the story.
Okay, I want to pursue this for a reason. It's not a secret. It's known in my family. I have a brother who was diagnosed with and has suffered for many years with paranoid schizophrenia. So I just want to get to what was Japheth diagnosed with? Was it a psychotic form of paranoid schizophrenia? Was there a diagnosis, or was there just assumptions that he had a mental health illness?
He was diagnosed with it when he was 6.
Was he
diagnosed with
was he medicated throughout the years?
Yes. Somehow he got off his medication.
And he tried getting medication again. While he was incarcerated. But while he was incarcerated, they put him just on a medication called Seroquel. And all that Seroquel did was basically turn him into a zombie, make him gain a bunch of weight, and he couldn't be a human being anymore while he was on Seroquel. So it didn't actually treat the schizophrenia. It just made him no longer be able to be a person. And so it wasn't really a treatment for it. I don't know what the real treatment is for schizophrenia, but I know that Seroquel is more like a tranquilizer. And so it wasn't an effective treatment, but he did try to get treatment while he was in prison before he got released. He got released about 1.5 years before he got killed. And so,
We do have a lot of external noise coming through at the minute, and I just hope that we can bring that to a stop because it's really affecting the broadcast. But just for Donna Chizezi's attention, she wanted to know who was speaking, and I just wanted to know it was Kay Smith, who was the wife of Japheth Smith, that's speaking alongside Japheth's mother, Matilda Smith, and obviously Donna, you know that Yolanda's also on the show. But I just want to go back to both Kay and Matilda, probably Kay first, because you'd have probably seen as he got older the paranoia take a real grip on him because you was in the marriage relationship with him. Did he ever get violent and aggressive with you?
No, we had, I have bipolar, so we had our own issues. We had fights that were two-sided of pretty good at fighting and arguing and blocking doors and things that were two-sided, but he was never violent towards me, and he never took out aggression on me. He got scared. He would leave. He would run. Before I knew he killed, I would call the police and things, and
I'm
I've learned my
not sorry,
lesson.
Kay. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's your system that's buffering and cutting in and out.
I don't know. We're not moving. So
no, I can hear just the noise just is constant coming. I'm not sure if it's Yolanda. If you're still driving, if you are still driving,
maybe I don't know. We're just sitting on a couch, so we're not moving at all. I'm not sure.
Well, then it can't be you. It must be Yolanda. But if we, whoever it is, if we could just mute the mics in between the movements until we start talking, then that really would be helpful. That noise is gone now, so that's a good thing. So with the mental health, because we want to just kind of stay there. Donna's also noticed the noise in the background. Thank you, Donna. Donna Chizezi is also a very good close friend of Donna Hayes and Yolanda McNair, and she obviously represents in Protect Our Stolen Treasures and is known
Oh,
to most
yeah,
of
she
you.
is great.
Yeah.
Donna is great.
Absolutely fantastic, and she's actually listening to the show and throwing in her comments when she can, as well as my dear friend Jerry Summers, who I really wish. Sometimes I just wish I'd have just put the message out there and got him on this show as well, because he's so knowledgeable on what police should do in circumstances like this. Sometimes we just surmise and we'd like to think that we know, you know. But here's the thing. We're talking about a young man who had mental health related issues, who was known in the community as having mental health related issues, was diagnosed and medicated for the mental health related issues. So therefore, it was under control. But even though it's under control, just as my brother was being medicated, and my brother suffered it still does, but it doesn't manifest itself now as the way it used to, but for over 30 years. And for most of those earlier years, he struggled with his medication, struggled taking it because he thought that the medication was part of the conspiracy to entrap him into whatever it was his paranoia was telling him.
That's exactly what Jaffa thought.
You know, and you know, it came to a point where my mother used to crush it up and put it in his food, and then he'd stop eating his food because he thought somebody was trying to poison him. Because he wasn't stupid. He could taste the difference in the food. He didn't know what they had done, but he knew they'd done something. You know, and then he would know that after he'd eaten, he felt differently, and it was the fact that he felt differently after taking that medication that he struggled with. And many times, the type of medication that's been used for paranoid schizophrenia actually makes them feel worse than how they feel when they're not being medicated, and that's why they're able to identify when they're being medicated, right? So they fight against the medication because it makes them feel worse. It subdues them, it restricts them, it plays havoc with their thoughts, it absolutely destroys their body. So they're fully aware that once they've had that medication, they've had it. And so whether you put it in their coffee or you put it in their food, they're aware at that point in time that something's happened. And so my brother knew my mother was doing something to his food, so he stopped eating my mother's food. My mother couldn't cook for him anymore. In fact, he would take my mother's dinner and put it in the bin and then go make himself something else. So my mother had to keep finding a new way of trying to get the medication into him. We knew he needed the medication, but he was not in a position to understand that he was not well. Do you understand me? Now, I'm imagining
yes, I do.
That's where Japheth was. He was at times, he didn't understand that he was not well, so therefore taking the medication that made him feel worse didn't help him.
Exactly. That's exactly where he was.
So tell me the type of things that Japheth would do and get up to while he was having these bouts of paranoia.
He would, so the incident I remember the most that scared me the most was he really thought that he actually thought that I was out to get him at this point, and we were always really, really close. Like, he never would have thought. He knew I always had his back. So this particular incident, he thought that I was against him and that I had people, like the police were, like, that I had the police coming for him, and I was just trying to go to sleep. This was about 3:00 in the morning. I had to work the next day. And he had checked every closet. He swore that there was people outside waiting for him. And I opened the door wide open. I walked in the middle of the street and said, look, there's no one out here. You know, I went and shook the tree and said, look, there's no one in this tree. And he was pointing to the people in the tree. And I mean, this is the incident that stands out the most, like when he was really having his biggest break that I remember. And this actually happened, you know, with the same type of incident happened at his sister's house one time too, at least one time, and she recorded it. But this was towards the end of his life, and this wasn't happening early on in our relationship. This happened after the last time that he was incarcerated. And so we feel like his biggest break happened while he was incarcerated for a long period of time. And I don't know. I mean, he really thought the whole world was out to get him. He thought there was people under the bed. He thought there was people in the closets. He thought he really was physically seeing these people in camouflage with machine guns in trees. And there was nothing I could do to talk him out of it. I mean, he really believed they were there. And when the officers showed up, he was pointing these people out to the officers as well. So there was just no convincing him that these weren't a real live threat to his life. And
here's the thing. Here's the thing that most people don't understand. When somebody is suffering the mental illness that is known as paranoid schizophrenia, what they are experiencing is as absolutely real to them as it's unreal to us.
That's true, Karen.
And that's exactly what it was. I could not, there was nothing, I physically was trying to touch these things that he could see and show him that it was air, and there was nothing in this world that I could do to convince him that it was not real. And it was the most heartbreaking thing I remember.
So I want to try and get to the day. And Yolanda, I'm really sorry if we're cutting you out a little bit. I'm going to come back to you very shortly because you do a tremendous work, and thank you for bringing these women together for us. But we're going to come back to you very shortly, so please don't disappear. Stand by. I'm going to bring you in very shortly. But bring us to the day when this incident took place. As far as you know, what took place? What was he doing where he was? Why was he there? And take us through that scenario as best as you can, as you know it.
Well, earlier in the day, it was Mother's Day earlier in the day, and I had spoken to him earlier in the day, and he had attended a barbecue with his family that I never made it to, but he had been with his family earlier in the day, and later in the day he had been with friends. I mean, after talking to the people he was with immediately prior to this incident, he'd been with friends. And from what we call them friends now. After this has happened, they've turned out to not really be friends. It seems more like, so what if one of the things that, Jaffert's self-medicated with narcotics, he had drugs in his system when he died. And so we believe that that night he was with people that he had drugs in common with. And the story basically is he left with that girl. It makes no sense because he was found with no cell phone on him. He was found with no money in his pockets. He was found with no keys. There was no real explanation as to how he ended up where he ended up at 3 a.m. with this random female. But the story is that he left this house, went for a walk with this girl. And we really don't have a good explanation. No one's really talking. We've never talked to the girl face to face. We've just heard rumors. There's been the streets have told various versions of the story. So we don't really know.
We talked to witnesses. We've talked to witnesses that the house where he was shot at, the people that lived there, we talked to them. And one of the children witnessed this whole thing. And this I will never forget, because when they shot a lot of bullets into their home. And they were weeks later and months later, they were still getting bullets out of their home. This child seen the whole incident and he told us about it. But witnesses were given notes from the police or the BCA. All the neighbors was given notes as to what to say if we came around to ask questions. And we thought that was weird. So there were a lot of weird things about it. There were really a lot of weird things that we saw. That was about it. Like we wanted to talk to this girl, okay. And then when I mentioned that, BCA put a hold on this girl in the hospital and made sure that she was not to be seen by us, by anyone. They really wouldn't let anyone in there to see the girl. Then the next thing we know, we tried to get down to the medical examiner's office to see Jaffer's body. They put a hold on his body. His family cannot see his body. So we had to wait for his body for how long, Kate? 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just everything cover up. And secret grand jury, just everything. I mean, we had never seen anything like it. It was like a horror show. a nightmare. I never seen anything like what we seen.
Can you tell me what narcotics, what drugs Jaffet was known to be taking at the time of?
I think it was meth. I think they put that on him because I never knew of him to take anything like that. I think somebody put that drugged him with that. I don't know because I never heard of him fooling with that.
The tox thing that was in the report said that he had meth in his system.
Meth.
And marijuana. So.
Okay, but
yes,
but I take it.
Now, I've heard of him smoking marijuana, but I never heard him doing crystal meth.
And in our relationship, I had seen him do like in our younger life, I had seen him do like cocaine powder a couple times when we were very younger, like in the beginning of our relationship. Yeah. But in the end of our relationship, I had never seen him actually use any drugs, but he kept that kind of stuff away from me. That wasn't something that, it wasn't, I knew in the end of our relationship, he wasn't doing well, like when he got released from prison, it was really, really difficult. He tried really hard to get back into society. Like he went on probably 35 job interviews, but being a felon released, and his felonies weren't like big. I mean, they were he did minor things that people with mental health illnesses do, and got in trouble, but they were consistent. And so, I mean, he consistently stayed in trouble, so they kept adding up. But he had a record.
But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. You've got a guy who has a known mental health related issue, who's struggling to cope with the medication that he's receiving and the diagnosis he's struggling to understand. You would have thought that something in the system would be made available to support an individual like that and make sure that he was less harmful to himself and others, right?
Right.
Well, I asked his probation officer for help many times. And I said, especially when he first got released, they said he was going to have intense supervision, like they were going to stay on him and make sure he had some resources and make sure that he got, productive when he got released. And every time he made even little mistakes out here, I would say, look, what are we going to do to make sure this helps? How are we going to get, let's fix this. And they said they just wouldn't help. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. They wanted him
getting help for him.
They wanted him to end up back in the system or back in prison. And they were waiting for him to just be lost in the system. And everything, no matter what we did to try to help, no matter what he did to try to help himself, he got shut down. So in the end, I remember sitting here talking to him one day and saying, what are you going to do? It's been this many months and we're not making any progress. What are you going to do? And he started crying and he put his hands in his head and he said, I don't know. I'm lost. I don't know. And we didn't have any more resources. We didn't know what else to do. And I was working full time and I didn't have 24 hours a day to help him figure out what to do. So I don't know.
Right, so I'm just trying to Google something at the minute, by the way. Yeah, that's what I want. So, over here, in this country, we have something called a depot. Have you ever heard about the depot?
The what?
It's called the depot. It's an injection. It's an injection that people that suffer with paranoid schizophrenia get once every 3 months, which once you actually get somebody to understand that they've got the problem and they need to be taking the medication and you've got somebody who's supporting them to do that, they go into a clinic or a doctor's, their local GP, they get the injection once every 3 months and it controls and manages. They'll still hear the voices, but the voices are very minimal. But the paranoia is not as prominent. And it takes a time to get somebody from the tablets medication that they start them off with until they can get to that level of the injection, because so many individuals find it difficult to accept that their illness is that bad. Right? But once
and Jaffa was one of them.
Yeah, but once you get them on the depot, right, there's nobody that we know of that continues to abuse themselves in that way once they're being medicated with what we refer to over here as a depot. And I can't understand where we keep talking about, here in the UK, we talk about America being like our big brother, and we follow America. That's what's always been said. And I'm not trying to knock the people of America. What I'm trying to attack here is the infrastructure of America. the system of America, because for want of a better understanding, right? If they are so much our big brother, we've heard it said, and I've spoken to many police officers and law enforcement officers who have also identified the fact that law enforcement was originally based on our constabulary here in the UK. So that's another thing that but we're nothing alike. We don't have police running around with guns killing people innocently, right? You're a bigger nation than we are. You have more money than we are. Your economy is better than ours. But we seem to be doing a lot more for dealing with vulnerable people and even rehabilitation of those that are either on drugs or going to prison than anything that we can see happening in the United States of America. And that's a really sad indictment on a nation that sees itself as the land of milk and honey, trying to tell everybody else how they should live and what they should do. But again, just going back to this depot, if you was to Google it, and I'm trying to find something that writes it up, but it's called the long acting depot, and it lasts for about 3 months. So where you've got somebody who's struggling to take these tablets every day, and when they take the injection, it does make them feel wheezy and wonky for a few hours, but then the effect is gone. But the body, the system is now protected. Unlike the medication that they take when they're taking it daily, twice daily or whatever, and they're constantly feeling this nausea and illness and sickness that they feel when they take this medication. The depot is a once in every 3 month injection that they feel it, they know that they've had it for the first few hours, but then all of that's gone and they are able to live as normal a life as most people can under those circumstances. Far greater than what they would do while they're taking that medication. And I can't understand why. Well, I can actually, because it's all about money, really, isn't it? Probably medication costs more one way or another, and you guys don't have the national health system that we have over here in the UK, where we're trying to minimize how much. We don't. You know, everybody's got to pay for everything, so it's in their interest if they continue to clobber you and make you pay more, whether you're rich or poor, right?
That's right.
So is this an economical stranglehold on individuals?
Yes.
Wow, that's powerful. You know, I really wish that my dear friend Jerry was on with me today. He could have bailed me out here good, because I'd have liked to have had a better understanding as to what the police knew about treatment for paranoid schizophrenia and what training they had in understanding the signs and the symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia. Have you guys managed to investigate? What knowledge the police has on managing schizophrenia, identifying schizophrenia, and handling schizophrenia?
Well, I have no idea. All I know is I don't think they have none experience with dealing with mental health. But I do think they have gotten people now. I think they have included these kind of people in their training now, just now. I don't know for sure, but I hear them talking about it. So I don't know. But people are still getting killed around here. One just got killed last week. So I don't know.
And I've actually participated in, just a couple months ago, I participated in a talk session with, about mental health and the police needing to have different responses or having different and they actually just passed some funding or are working on passing funding for mental health responders in St. Paul. And they do have a couple people on staff now that are doing, that are co-responding with the police. I don't necessarily still think that's the right response. I think we need actually just mental health responders to mental health situations, right? Because showing up with with guns and with your sirens and lights to a mental health crisis, is still going to set somebody in a parent, somebody who's having a mental health break, not necessarily push them in the right direction to help calm the situation. But at least they're sending somebody who specializes with mental health, like an actual certified mental health technician or specialist with the officers now. They've started that in St. Paul. So it is a start. I don't think it's the actual solution, but it's a start. So
let me just jump in here. Let me just jump in here, Kay. For many years here in the UK, the police do not directly respond to people going through a mental health related issue. When you have somebody, unless it's an act of direct violence and somebody is either risk to themselves or another, right? The police do not respond. The first respondents in this country to anybody going through a mental health related episode is a group entitled the Crisis Team. And the Crisis Team are certified doctors, right? These are people who are trained in mental health related issues, and they are authorized to either give medication or detain. In other words, in a mental health related institute. So they can take them to a hospital and have them detained to be medicated until they are normalized, right? If that person is not willing to come, then they will call for police backup and support. But that police backup and support is only maneuvered and monitored by the Crisis Team. Now,
what we need.
If you've got first responders going in there, if I was you, I wouldn't shoot that down yet. I'm not by any means trying to applaud St. Paul's. But what I am trying to say is if they're starting to do that, that's a better step than what's taking place in many states and cities in the United States of America right now, where there is no medical backup for people with mental health related issues, right? So
I completely agree. It's a start. It's definitely a start. I agree.
But for us here in the UK, we have long been used to the Crisis Team, who is our first port of call in anybody going through a mental health related episode. So there's a direct number. There are units attached to most hospitals around the country. So it's not like it's a few and far between and you've got to wait. Sometimes there is a wait depending on how many are available, but they will come, and depending on priority and need, they will come supported by police. And they are the ones that go in because they are trained counselors. So they know how to coerce, they know how to talk, they know how to understand, they know how to analyze and find out just what sort of an episode this individual is having. They know they have a set of questions that they ask, they're looking for particular responses, and on that they will gauge what response and support they need for this particular individual, right? These are trained medical certified doctors who are trained in issues related to mental health. And that's what you need in the United States of America if you are to stop the sheer mass killings of mental health related or individuals who are going through mental health related episodes on the streets of the United States of America. So I don't know if Yolanda is still there. Well,
Yolanda?
Still here.
Okay, so Yolanda, I mean, I know we've kept you out for a long time and you've had to mute yourself because you've got all this noise going on around you and you're sat down in a car somewhere, so I fully understand. But, I mean, you've been listening to these ladies tell this story of how Japheth was shot 19 times and the police shot a total of 52 bullets at this individual who was going through a mental health related issue. As an organization, you've had to support these women, I believe?
Yes.
And many more like them. I mean, what is your perception of what they've had to go through as a wife and as a mother in a sheer monstrosity of how Japheth was treated by the police and his body was handled after his death and shooting?
That's disgraceful. That was very inhumane. The way that they treated Kay and Matilda was purposely done. You know, the cruelty was purposeful. I don't know if it was just the fact that they wanted get their jollies or they just wanted to exert their authority over the situation. But the way that things were handled was, you can't even say poor. Poor is giving it an upgrade. It was something that should never have been stood for. The prosecutor and the police department should be ashamed of themselves to have done something like that and allowed it to have happened.
But it wasn't much different to how you were treated in Daisha's death, right?
Not so much. They didn't try to purposely interject pain in the way that I was told about her death. But I say the purposeful act of waiting to notify me at 5 something in the morning, and no, to wait for somebody else to tell me, as opposed to listening to the young lady who took her to the party say where she lives at, go there, that's her family, and let them know. You got to remember, Daisha was shot at 12:05 p.m. 911 wasn't called till 12:30. Daisha laid in the hospital on a gurney from 12:50 until 5 in the morning when I got there. All this time, the hospital had my information because they had her wristband on with her full name, social security number. Daisha was under my insurance. My phone number hasn't changed in over 10 years, so they could fully get in touch with me. But instead, they left her there. But yeah, in any of these stories, any of these, and I don't even know why we call them stories because they're truths. In any of these truths, the families are treated viciously and poorly, as though our children did something to warrant their deaths, as if our loved ones purposely sought out an interaction or some sort of incident that would result in their death. These so-called police officers are allegedly trained, and let's just be real, in the United States, it takes you longer to become a barber than it does to become a cop.
Yes.
And that don't make a difference what state you go to. It will take you longer to become a certified barber than it will to become a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been doing these stories on Issues Today for over 3 years now. And we never meant to. We did a one show. Again, as I said, we've done Tamir Rice, we've done John Crawford, we've done Sandra Bland, we've done Kendrick Johnson. In fact, we've got Kendrick Johnson's mother, Jackie Johnson, on the show next week again, bringing an update on the Kendrick Johnson case. We've been doing this for over 3 years now, and we really struggle over here in the UK to understand how this is still going on in a country that's one of the leading countries in the world, if not the leading country in the world. And yet they have the audacity to walk into somebody else's backyard and tell them how they should live and what human rights they need to be. I think it's the one reason why I believe it's on the 8th of September we have a show which will have one of the directors of the United Nations live on here, along with, I believe, Yolanda, you're going to be one of our guests on that show. Jerry Summers will be on it. Greg Greer will be on it. Jonathan Newton will be on it. And we have some others who will be on it also. And we're looking at ways of trying to bring some pressure to bear on the government of United States of America to change the way they treat, in particular, people of color. Because in the justice system, the way that we are shot down like dogs on the street, the way that they are victimized and the way that families are victimized, it's almost like it's a genocide within a nation, state by state.
It is.
State by state.
It is. It's
absolutely.
It's open season. It's open season.
State by state, they're killing young black men and women nationwide, state by state. And yes, I'm fully aware that there are people of different nationalities being targeted and victimized. The Native Americans have had a very bad time of it too. We get that. And there are many white folk who are also caught up in all of this, but not at the rate or the sheer vindictiveness that you see them attacking our people of color. The direct, intentional effort in sweeping those young men off the streets. And
yes,
when they could be best folk, and I don't think anybody would lose sleep if they were sweeping the streets of gangbangers and drug dealers and rapists and murderers and bank robbers. But it's the young, innocent, troubled and vulnerable young men and women of our communities that are under this attack. And when you look at the case of Jaffet Smith, who's, and let's get this right, he is ill. He has a sickness. He has been diagnosed. He is medicated. And yet you would treat him far worse than you would treat a hardened criminal. It makes you wonder.
Yes.
It makes you wonder what on earth is going through the minds of law enforcement officers as they attend.
Oh.
They target mentally ill people. They always because they feel like they have things to rely on that the public will immediately believe. And I'm so sick of the public being so eager to gobble up shit. And I'm gonna just say it like that. Because they don't take the time. And I tell my grandkids all the time, it only takes 2 seconds to think. Use them. The police officers will say, well, they were violent. They were physically violent. You know that mentally ill people are stronger than the average. And, you know, they have all of these statistics that they want to rely on and that the public will believe. And I say, okay, he's a gentle soul. No matter what his mental condition is, he's of more harm to himself than anyone else. No, don't believe that. Don't believe that that person will be a detriment to themselves. Say that they are something unleashed on society, a monster that needed to be stopped. And let's remember, it only takes one bullet to kill a person. So why do you have to unload, reload, and unload again?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Was killed with one bullet.
I mean, the bottom line is,
Terrence Kellum got 7. No, correct. Terrence Kellum got 8. After the officer shot him 7 times in the chest and the stomach, he went and shot him 1 time in the back while he was down on the ground already dead and had the audacity to say, "Don't move."
Yes.
Okay. It's easy for them to murder us. And officers are black as well as white murdering our children because as long as they're wearing that blue, they protect it. What we need to do is dismantle their union, take their pension and make that what people get paid out of. Because understand this, when the cities settle a case, it is the taxpayers and the citizens of that city that pay the family. It is not the police department. They don't lose any federal funding. They just get downgraded. Lose that federal funding. Stop taking out, giving them all them little bells and whistles and toys because they don't need them. They're not using them for what they should be using them for. The state of Michigan has the largest militia in the country. But they're not up there looking at them to see why they are buying armaments and weapons and ammo by the boatload. And I'm not exaggerating when I think about a boatload. They are. But they don't look at them because hell, if they go ahead and go off, they ain't gonna do nothing but go shoot it after some dark eight anyway.
Wow.
So we need to change this system, and we don't have to sit up here and wait for permission to do it. I'm tired of people sitting up here saying, "Well, we can't because they don't." You the one that's giving them permission to do the stuff to you because you won't say enough.
That's right.
You know, you got 2 feet, stand on them. But if you're gonna bow down and be on your knees, get out my way. Because I'm not gonna ever do that for anybody. I'm gonna fight for mine till there's no breath left in me. and I'm gonna fight for everybody else's while I'm doing it.
Amen to that. Now let's, because I know we can't go into this in great detail, but I want to flip back to Kay White as you're on that point, because you said, Yolanda, you're going to fight to the death for yours and everybody else. Well, Kay was prepared to take it to a whole nother level. In fact, I know you're still looking at a lawsuit or a criminal charge or case or whatever it is, and I know that you can't go into this in great depth, but apparently you've been charged with threatening to kill the 4 officers that took your husband's life.
So I made a bad phone call when I was, like I said, I have bipolar and I have post-traumatic stress. That was heavily, the post-traumatic stress I've had for years after Jeffert's death. And when something like this happens, the police, they do more to you. Like the police become heavily present in your life after they kill your loved ones. And I don't know if it's because they worry that you're going to do something back, or I don't exactly know why all of a sudden, like I never had any dealings with the police prior to Jaffert's death. I don't have a criminal record other than minor stuff for me and like, you know, I had like a 10-year-old DUI or something. And then Jaffert and I had a fight in Montana years ago when we lived there. And so I had minor stuff on my record, but I just had a mental health break. I just flipped out one night and I'm just tired. You know, we never got an apology from any, you know, at the end of the day, what incidents led to whatever justification the police believe that they had, you know, at the end of the day, they took my husband, they took Matilda's son, they took...
We're struggling with your signal at the minute. Kay, it's kind of very robotic. I don't know if you want to situate yourself in a better place.
What happened? Let's see. I see it spinning. Give me 1 second. Oh, is that better?
Yeah, that's
Is it better now?
Much better. Go ahead. Carry on.
So, I guess it's been a couple years and you know, like I said, I have bipolar, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. It got way worse after Jaffert died, and the police just became present everywhere. You know, they would sit outside my house. They would just start running plates on my block for no reason. You know, I became, for 2 years after I just recently moved out and am selling my house in St. Paul and moved to a new city because I can't deal with the pressure of the police around here all the time. And with, just the stuff that happened after Jock's death. We called Jaffert Jock, just so you know. So if I accidentally call him Jock, it's Jaffert. And so I had a night a few months ago where I was just not able to deal with it anymore. And at the end of the day, you know, we actually confronted the chief of police and the mayor of St. Paul and city council members at one point, shortly after Cordell Handy, who's another victim of the St. Paul police. We had a big community meeting and we confronted them and just actually asked for an apology from the police for taking him, you know, no matter what reason they feel like it was justified, you know, sorry for our loss, you know, just an apology might just maybe start to mend something. You know, I mean, I live here, I pay taxes here, all this stuff. And so we couldn't even get this chief of police looked me in the face and just stared at me and couldn't even apologize to our family for the pain, you know, and for how we were treated as a family when we didn't do anything that night. And so I guess it just all led up to me just all I wanted was answers. And so the truth of the gist of that, you know, it was only some of it was in the paper and, you know, some of what you read is just not really the whole story. But basically I was asking for answers. I was like, how do these cops get to continue on with their life? And, you know, they're getting married, they're engaged, they post these vacation pictures, you know, their life got to continue on and mine just, you know, has stayed paused, you know, like they killed my future. They killed, you know, we didn't have kids yet. You know, we everything that we had planned, you know, was paused because of this. And I never got any answers. You know, the only way to really get answers is to sue the police. You know, that's how you get to discovery. That's how you really get the details of what happened that night. And the truth is we as a family don't really want to sue the police, at least at this point. You know, like it opens up old wounds. It brings everything, you know, the press then starts attacking our family again. You know, everything that we've finally the little bit of scar tissue that's built up right now gets ripped back open when our whole family life gets put in the papers again. And so I guess I just got fed up of the fact that we're just supposed to pretend like it never happened and move on in life. And I was asking for answers. And so what happened that night was me just saying, somebody needs to call me back and tell me why this is okay. When are you guys going to stop doing this? And why is this okay? And I just got tired and fed up. And I made some threats on the phone that the police decided to pursue charges on. And I truly believe that if I wasn't an activist, if I hadn't stood up to them and interrupted city council meetings and made my voice heard over the last couple of years, I don't believe that I would be looking at felony charges right now. But at the end of the day, I will always stand up for my husband, and I will always stand up against police brutality. And hopefully this doesn't, doesn't end up, going with what I'm currently charged with. But it wasn't, I never had any real intentions. I mean, I know that people probably enjoyed hearing and reading the story. I never had any real intentions to cause any harm to anybody. I don't have that type of personality. I was hurt. I miss my husband. I miss him every single day. When I met my husband, I had a traumatic brain injury. I was disabled, and he helped me figure out life again. So without him, it's been challenging, and I just had a break that night, and I made a bad phone call. Many people have threatened the police on 911 calls. There's records of it. If you Google it, there's records of tons of old people and people making bad phone calls, and never being charged with felonies. So I sort of think that this is just a little bit targeted at me, because of my activism and because I've been a vocal, opponent of the St. Paul police and of their killing of Black men. But we'll see what happens.
Here's the real thing. I wonder how many people have actually thought about killing the officers that have got away with killing their loved ones. I would imagine every single parent that has gone through something similar to you has actually had that thought. And the fact that you voiced that in anger and was charged for it, I think is an absolute injustice that they even dared to step upon your threshold and arrest you and drag you through the courts. And let's just make this point very clear right now. If this had been a member of society, a member of the community that had lost a loved one in a straightforward shooting out on the streets, there would have been a police liaison officer to go and support that family through their transition of dealing with the death, right through beyond burial, right? Your case is no different. Just because it was done by somebody wearing a blue uniform doesn't give them the right not to support you in the same way they would have supported had it not been somebody in blue that had pulled the trigger. So you guys got a double whammy. A, they killed your child, and B, they haven't even supported you in order to find a way to get through it and over it. And had you been a Joe Bloggs and an ordinary member of the public, you'd have been entitled to that support from a police liaison officer or family liaison officer who would have come alongside the family and just tried to support you in getting through your grief and understanding how you lost your loved one, right? So just because police can claim that it was done in pursuit of a criminal activity or whatever, doesn't mean that you actually haven't got a grieving process. You're not guilty, even if, and I'm saying this very conservatively, even if your son was guilty of the most heinous criminal act, you were guilty of nothing and deserved the same sort of support they would have given anybody else had it not been someone in blue pulling that trigger. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, I do.
So, Yolanda, as somebody who heads up Protect Our Stolen Treasures and supports many women, you find yourself taking the place of what the police liaison or the family liaison officer should have been doing in supporting a family that's having to get through the loss of a loved one, right?
Yes, we are. We're some of everything. We're your counselor, your confidant, your sounding board, your experience, your contact, your resource. We try to do as much as we possibly can. We have different programs that we're planning on implementing as soon as we get a building to help families in the aftermath of it. But something has to be done to prevent this from happening. And
Yes.
you know, this bull crap de-escalation training is just that. They were not trained to escalate it. You're just not doing your filtration like you should. You're not making sure that you're getting a clean soul or mindset. You are accepting whatever checks off. Oh, well, he's been in the military. Let's bring him in. What? Damaged in the military, and you didn't check to see. You getting people who are raised to mimic a normal person. When they're mentally ill, the people who raised them are mentally ill. The people who raised them taught them to believe that the color of someone's skin made them different when you had no choice in what color your skin was in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then to have the audacity to say that I'm proud to be white, but then you try to damn us for saying we proud to be black.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to change their color. We good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, why you messing with us? That's why I created that T-shirt with the open police badge that says you started this.
Yeah.
We didn't. But guess what? Just like our mamas taught us, you end it. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do.
Just a very quick one in response to what you went through, Kay Smith. One of my dear friends and a contributor to this show on many occasions is ex-chief of police Jerry Summers, who's currently listening to the show, and he says this about the issue where we talk about you being arrested and charged and facing a felony charge. He says an apology should have been forthcoming immediately. It is such a simple thing, yet law enforcement refuses to do so. He has, as a chief of police, he has apologized for his department's actions without admitting guilt, and it goes so far to help heal those remaining. You should not be charged, and a prosecutor needs to dismiss the case. That's from a former chief of police.
Thank you.
I think majority of people find this almost as if you are being put through this twice. You've lost your husband, and now they're trying to take away your own freedom, which is depriving you of the time that you need to grieve, because now you need to be focusing on your defense and your attempt to stay free. I think it's such an injustice, and that's just an understatement. I can't express just how angry I feel on your behalf, just at the way you're being treated by St. Paul's law enforcement and your judiciary system. But we're going to be looking to follow this up, support in any way that we can, and update people where and when we get more information so that they can be aware of how this is progressing. But, you know, wanting to kill the officers that took your lover, your life, your future away, and actually doing something to initiate it is two different things. So you said it in anger. What evidence do they actually have that you ever intended to follow it through?
None. When it happened, I was in a whole nother city. I was at work in my office that I own my own business. I was on my couch with my feet up watching a movie when they busted in the office with shields and guns drawn. In a completely different city, over an hour and a half later, a completely different town. And as a matter of fact, the St. Paul police was not going to do anything about the calls until the New Brighton police, which is the town that I was in, showed up because somebody did a wellness check. They thought I was suicidal. And it was the person that called the New Brighton police thought I was suicidal that night because I was so outside of my mind and so sad that they did a wellness check on me. When the New Brighton police showed up to do the safety check, the person had also reported that I made threats to the St. Paul police. When they called the St. Paul police at that time, the St. Paul police decided to pursue the charges against me. So I was in my office with my shoes off, with my feet up, watching a movie. And I had no intentions I had the phone. I had been off the phone for over an hour and a half by the time they showed up to arrest me.
Here's what I read. According to a criminal complaint, Kay made multiple phone calls Wednesday night to the Ramsey County Emergency Communication Center on the non-emergency line to a dispatcher and a supervisor. She threatened to show up at the homes of the 4 officers who shot her husband, saying they deserve death and their lives are in jeopardy. She threatened to shoot all 4 officers. After receiving a call from Kay's friend, police found her and took her into custody. On the ride to the jail, she began to injure herself. Later, in an interview with police, Kay said she was suicidal and has trouble dealing with her husband's death. She told police she has been previously diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder. She called her actions a mistake, denied knowing where the 4 officers live, and told police she does not own any guns. Now, this was all prior to you being charged.
Yes.
And yet they went ahead and charged you anyway.
Yes.
The report says later in an interview with police, Kay said she was suicidal and has had trouble dealing with her husband's death. She told police she has been previously diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder. She called her actions a mistake, denied knowing where the officers live, and told police she does not own any guns. All of these things would have been mitigating circumstances to give you a caution, give you a warning, tell you to just be mindful about what you did in the future, and remember that threats can still be considered intentional, whatever, but be understanding and compassionate, because you've just revealed that you suffer with post-traumatic stress and bipolar, and you're still grieving the loss of your husband. Now, I just really wish we had a police officer who could understand or who could explain to us what type of human being then tries to make matters even worse for you by then charging you and following through. Now, Yolanda...
They also set my bail at $30,000.
I saw that.
They threw the full bail at me.
At $30,000, facing up to 5 years behind bars. Yolanda, how do we defend that sort of behavior? How do we?
Well, her mental state and her grief are real, and they need to be recognized as that. But to say that she did something unique, she didn't. Everybody, no matter how godly they are, felt or thought about killing the officers that killed their child, because there's no consequences for it. I tell my kids all the time, my grandkids, there's consequences for everything you do right, and there's consequences for everything you do wrong. It doesn't matter. There's always an up and a downside to it. But for them to get away scot-free for murdering somebody, and then you get the book thrown at you for speaking a normal reaction, regardless if she called or she talked to somebody face to face, I've said it. People keep saying, well, what would you have done if it was your only child? I said, we'd be having a totally different conversation right now. I even told you that, Kervin. We would be talking about something different, because it wouldn't have been a problem for me to have gone up in that officer's house and cleaned it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they need to understand and respect the fact that we choose to fight the way that we are fighting. We're taking the activist route. We're not taking an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth route.
Let me just quickly come back. Let me just quickly come back.
We exercised our options. So be respectful of the fact that this woman exercised her options, and she had a right to voice what was on her mind. Now, to say criminal intent, prove it.
Here's a point. Very quickly, Yolanda. Kay, again, this is a response from Jerry Summers, a respected former chief of police and a very dear friend. But you have to have the apparent ability to carry out the threat at the time of the threat, or it isn't a valid threat. Being an hour and a half away negates the threat. Do you get me?
Yeah, no, not in Minnesota. The threshold is lower for the terroristic threats in Minnesota, according to my attorney. and they have me recorded making the threats. And so right now, the only option I have is a mental health escape, is what my attorney's telling me, or mental health, not escape, but I have to go through some kind of mental health thing. I don't know. And I was not an hour and a half away. I was like a half hour away in the suburb. But I don't know. I mean, that's what I was told initially too from one attorney, and then my actual attorney told me that the threshold for the actual charge in this particular in St. Paul, I guess it is that all I had to do was make the threats, and they have them recorded. So I don't know. I mean, I wish that was the case.
Whether they record the threats or not, I clearly hear what Jerry is saying here. What he's saying is you have to have the apparent ability to carry out the threat at the time of the threat, or it isn't a valid threat. Right?
That means if you don't have a gun in front of you or the ability to go and pick up one, you're not an imminent threat.
And the fact that you didn't own or possess any guns means that you couldn't have carried it out anyway.
Right. Yeah, I know. They searched the office and made sure I didn't have any weapons or anything. They tore apart the office looking, and I've never owned a gun ever. I mean, so I don't know what they're. I don't know. I mean, it's so far it's gone to. I mean, they're continuing to hold the charges, and one of the officers has a restraining order against me. So, and I'm not allowed to call the police line or to go to the police station. So, I don't know. You know, I appreciate the info, and I'm hoping, you know, I'm hoping my attorney knows what he's doing, because I have the type of job that if I do get convicted, I'll lose my livelihood and I'll lose my business. So it's a scary reality, really, what I'm facing.
Okay, here's why I love doing what I do here. We have a network of friends, of people who, when they hear somebody's plight, want to help. Jerry Summers is currently messaging, and I can see what he's saying here now, and if he was on my wall, you'd be able to see it too. He asked the question, are you being charged under a terrorist statute, and what is the statute, as he'd like to do some research. And if you tie up with Jerry after the show or whatever, you can link him up. He'll be waiting for you to respond. He'll give you some advice and support and some direction. He's a great man, he's a great friend, very knowledgeable, and he will do this pro bono, or whatever they call it over there. I'm probably speaking for him now, but I know what Jerry's like. He will do whatever he can to put you in the right direction as to how you can best defend this. Because
thank you.
Okay, so he's messaging on my wall. His name is Jerry Summers, former chief of police, and he knows this kind of thing inside out. So please don't hesitate to contact him or ask him for some advice and give him the information that he's looking for. He'll research it and he will get right back to you. Okay?
Okay. I see him on your wall. I'll follow up with him. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's not a problem. So, we're still there. We're not going anywhere yet. We've still got about 15 minutes of the show left to do, and we've got a bit more to cover. I really want to try and get into the work that Yolanda Post and Protect Our Stolen Treasures have done in supporting you guys as a family. We were supposed to have Anne-Marie Grant and Tracy Knight on the show as well. Tracy Knight, we apologize for up front. She had some high blood pressure issues last night and is currently in hospital, so she can't be on the show. We miss her, and we miss her contributions and her inputs. She was a great guest on this show just a couple of months ago. So I know that she would have been a great addition to this show. And Anne-Marie Grant couldn't make it today on this show, and we've set aside another date for her and another friend of hers who's gone through something quite similar, because I do believe that her son was tasered. And I can't remember the full content of what took place, but it was horrific just the same. And she's going to be on a future show. I believe it's around about the 15th of September. I think we've got her booked in for. So you need to look out for that. But these are also women that have been supported by Yolanda and her group. So I was just trying to, while we've got a few minutes to play with it, I wanted to find out what sort of support did you get from Yolanda and Protect Our Stolen Treasure.
For me? Oh, Yolanda's been great. She's been so supportive. Yolanda, to Feet to Fire, Yolanda does everything. She's been here in St. Paul and supported the mothers here. She is remarkable and amazing. She does a lot.
And I take it you've had invites to other functions that they have, events that they run, because there are...
Yes, I have. And I've been invited to a lot of her functions. I got to get to some of them.
And this is the point that I was just trying to make a very short while ago, right? That if you had been an ordinary Joe Bloggs, right, who had lost a loved one through a violent or a vicious crime, right, you would be supported by the police or family liaison officer connected to that particular state department, who would have been coming out to your home and talking you through the various things that you need to be organizing and sorting out and helping you to get through your grief, and that kind of thing. And so it's a cowardly way for law enforcement, for the thin blue line, to treat victims of crime, because you are also a victim.
I know, and it was horrible. I tell you, I never experienced anything like what I had experienced.
And although we applaud the work that Yolanda does, right, that shouldn't have had to have been what you were going through, because you should have had the support as a victim of crime. But
I don't even know what I would have done without Yolanda. I really don't.
Yolanda, tell us a little bit more about what Post does for women and families who go through this type of experience, having lost a loved one, a stolen treasure, especially to law enforcement.
Well, one of the things that we do most is we listen. We allow them to talk and to. Sorry, I had to let somebody drive by in a mini bike. We let them express themselves freely. They don't have any, there's no filters. You can say what you want to say as much as you want to say it. I don't care if you say the same thing 50 times in a row. Say it. You have to get that out. We allow people to be themselves. Aside from that, we offer them every kind of support that we possibly can. We're a growing organization. As a matter of fact, we just opened the Columbus, Ohio chapter yesterday. So we have one in Portland, Oregon, Greenville, South Carolina, Detroit, and Columbus, Ohio. And hopefully we will have one in Oklahoma by the end of the month. But at the same time, everything is coming out of our pockets. So we can't really offer this financial support that we want to. We're working to get grants and we're working to build our funds. But socially, we get them in touch with any kind of person that we know can help them, whether it's mental health, a lawyer, housing. We try to make sure that those things are taken care of, because people don't look at what it really is. The domino effect of the aftermath is this.
That's the truth, Yolanda. That's so true.
You lose your finance, you lose your home, you lose your car, you lose your job, you lose your ability to take care of yourself, you lose your medical. You become physically damaged by your emotional pain. PTSD is a real thing. Don't think that these people are not suffering it, especially those who witnessed the murder. Okay, we have 2 members in our group alone. Terrence Kellum's father, Kevin Kellum, has PTSD. He's there. The officers held him down. They physically laid on him, and let him watch his son be shot.
Oh my God.
Her granddaughter, 7 years old, shot in the head by an officer. Her brains on her face. Officers had the nerve to tell her, don't stand up, crawl across the floor to them. They have PTSD. We have heart conditions, all kind of conditions that they didn't have before. So we try to get them to doctors who understand. They may not have medical support anymore as far as health insurance. So they work with them. We have psychologists who know that people need to talk to somebody, but you can't get $1 out of everybody and call yourself helping. And that's the one thing we try to drive home to everybody. You are in a profession to help people. Don't think that they got to give you $1 for you to do your job, because you took an oath to help. We already suffering because the officers don't help.
That's true.
And And everybody keeps saying, well, yeah, they're good cops out there. Yeah, they are. But like I said before, a silent cop ain't a good cop. He's just a silent cop trying to do a little bit better. You gotta open your mouth. You know, we do as much as we can to be there for them, come and support them. People don't understand how much of a positive effect it has on people when you show up physically. That's why we say be at the rallies we have, be at the protests that we have. You don't have to say anything. Physical presence has such a mass effect.
Oh yes.
And when others need us, we're there. We hear them. We put our arms around them. Just lean on me as long as you need to lean on me. I don't need nothing from you. I'll get myself there and back.
That's so true.
We need to be there for each other. We are forced into this life, but they don't understand how strong a bond in a community that they have built by being murderers.
Yeah.
You know, when we first started this show 3 years ago, somewhere along the line, I had a producer by the name of Sharon, and she was my producer. She was only my producer for a short period of time, but she had this amazing passion to want to set up a network of support that would support victims of police brutality. And we have tried to generate a platform where that support can be made readily available. So in doing what we do here, right here on Issues Today, A, we've got the platform, and B, we're connecting with people like Yolanda, like Jerry Summers, like Greg Greer up there in Chicago, which is awesome, the work that he's doing. And he's the one that, it's Greg that's actually generating the United Nations show that we're doing on September the 8th, pulling that together. But what I'd love to be able to see come from this is there's that support network. Just as you see Jerry Summers jump in there and say, yeah, just get me some information and I'll research it for you. And Yolanda standing there saying, well, you know, just show up. We'll be there for you. I don't care how many times you say it. As many times as you need to say it, I'll listen. That's the kind of proactive, immediate response that people like yourselves, Matilda and Kay,
yes,
are in desperate need of at the particular point of time of crisis.
And you're right, Kurt.
And what I'm hoping that we can continue to do here through what we do on Issues Today and through what people like Yolanda and Donna Hayes and Donna Chizese does, and Candice Brewer is another one, a powerhouse Candice Brewer. What I'd like to see happen is that platform of support be made available.
I'm so happy.
Readily available, so that when people go through this thing, when people are at the beginning of this thing, that we're able to react, step in, and maybe give them that support at root source, so they're not having to wait a process time to get this thing on the way. And again, anything that I can do from where I am, even here in the UK, to support Yolanda and her team and yourselves, and I'll be pressing on those like Jerry and Jonathan Newton, who's an attorney himself, qualified, certified, is another great man.
Yes. I love Jonathan. He's my friend too on Facebook.
Yeah, Jonathan is a great man. I love Jonathan, and we're looking forward to doing some more work with him in the future. But it's by bringing all of these people together, I think we have an opportunity to create a great network that not just tells the story, but will meet the need and challenge the problem. Because
thank you so much.
We can't just keep meeting the need. We've got to find a way to challenge the problem, and the problem lies deep within the way that the thin blue line operates and is protected by a traditional system that is totally against the needs and the wants of the people.
Yes, it is.
We need to work harder, if that be the right tone of phrase, at gelling ourselves together, making ourselves available as a unit that we can actually be the support that we need for those that want and need us. So I can't help
Yes.
but take my hat off to Yolanda and the great work that her and her team does.
Oh, I love Yolanda. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
But is there anything else? We're about 10 minutes away from finishing, about 5 minutes away before I go into an ad break. So is there anything else that you want to add to this, Matilda or Kay? And then we'll come to Yolanda at last. That you want to add to this that we probably haven't already covered? Is there anything that we missed?
No, we're thankful for everybody that we've met in this. I mean, losing Jafford is the hardest thing probably we've ever been through, but we've met amazing people across the country from this. And so that would be the thing I'm most thankful for, is that, you know, we're forced into this group of people and this family of survivors, I would say, but it's been humbling to meet the people that we've met. And there are just some really, really great people and amazing people out here. And so if anything good has come of it, is just the hearts of people that we've come in contact with. And for the bad that we've seen in the police force, and because it also opened your eyes to the ugliness of the police.
It does.
But you know, we've met amazing, loving people, and for that, I mean, I've got to just say thank you to everybody that we've come in contact with that's shown us love.
Yes.
It's been an honor having you on the show, Kay.
It's been an honor.
And we really look forward to getting an update on how your case turns out. So when that's over and done and you're able to speak a bit more freely, I think we may well revisit this and do this again, just so we can find out how you've got on, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for your time.
That's our pleasure. Matilda, what about you? Anything else that you want to say before we go?
No, that'll be our current. I just want to thank you all so much for hearing my story. Thank you.
Well, the privilege.
Thank you all for standing with me.
The privilege is ours, and we will continue to stand with you, Matilda and Kay. Yolanda, how would you like to round this up? How do you want to round this up on behalf of not just these women, but all the women that you represent?
I want people to know and understand that we're not begging people for anything. Our children didn't come here with a toe tag, with a price tag on it. You know, there's no price that you could pay that will compensate me for losing my child.
No.
Right.
So stop thinking that we're about money. We're about justice. Don't be disrespectful to us. Like I say all the time, life is to be respected and death requires responsibility. Those are my two sayings. And
Amen. We've just lost you there a minute, Yolanda.
Detroit. Yes.
Yeah, we just lost you. We lost your signal there a minute. You want to carry on?
Okay, we're inviting everyone to Detroit August 25th. We're having a party. It's on Facebook. We're celebrating the 2-year anniversary of Post. It's open to the public. We just want people to be able to come, bring your organization so we can get together and network freely. Let the children be children for a change. Let us just be people. You know, you don't have to come with the mindset that you got to talk about your loved one and you got to do that. No, just come and be you. And let's just have some fun together and enjoy life.
Sounds good, Yolanda.
Thank you. I hope that y'all two make it. You know, people keep thinking that our lives end because our someone we love was murdered. And we're going to keep continuing to call it murder because that's what it is.
That's what it is.
The fact is, we still live, we still love, we still want to do things. You know, we don't ball up and just die. That's disrespectful to the person who's gone.
That's right.
And I tell people all the time, I know it hurts. I know how bad it gets. I've been there. I've done that. I'll do it again. But at the same time, I have to keep living life because my daughter loved life.
So did Jafford.
So that's what we're doing. And we want everyone, you know, no matter where you are, even if you can't make it, go live and we'll go live with you. We'll include you in it. That's one of the things we want to do. And we're going to have a conversation at Curve, and I hope that you'll at least be able to tune in because we're going to have conversations openly live on Facebook with people, so you can see the interaction, you can see the conversation, the ideas, and how we're working through the things that we go through, how we're getting through life.
You know, on August the 25th,
yes,
I'm going to be live. I'm not sure. Let me just tell you, because I know I've got Brandy Rogers live on August the 25th. But that's at 6 p.m. my time, which is about 1 p.m. your time. So I'm quite sure that I'm going to find some time to get into your live party and contribute somehow, because Yolanda, we're not just doing this on Issues Today. I am building an empire of support, so to speak, for people who are going through this. And I don't say this lightheartedly. When I say that, I'm looking at people like yourself, Jerry Summers, Jonathan Newton, and Greg Greers. I told you that I had a producer who was looking at developing a support network. And I see what you're doing as exactly what I'd like to be able to support from here as best I can.
Okay.
So this is a family. This is family we're building here, right? You're all God-fearing people, and that's important to me because I'm a God-fearing man. So when Christ is at the center of it, when we're representing, we're ambassadors for God, then we know that we're highly favored. So
yes, we are.
So for me, this is definitely a powerful thing for us to be doing, and I say count me in, and I'm quite sure that those that I speak for, and as we continue to negotiate as the days go down, you'll find out that we're going to be a powerhouse for people who are going through this police brutality issue. Okay, so that's it for us. I'd just like to thank Matilda Smith, Kay Smith, Yolanda McNair, apologize for Tracy McKnight, who couldn't be here, and Anne-Marie Grant, who's going to be here on September the 15th. But I want to thank you all and all you listeners from across the globe, wherever you might be. Jerry Summers and Donna Chizazi and Janetta Lewis and Maria Baressa and everybody else that contributed, commented, and liked and supported the show. I want to give thanks to all of you for taking part, and our heart goes out to anybody that's lost a loved one to police brutality or killed by cops. And remember, we're here every Saturday between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. GMT, that's British Standard Time or Greenwich Mean Time, or 1 p.m. EST Eastern, or 12 p.m. Pacific, or I think it's about 10 or 11 o'clock Central Time. But please join us on Issues Today, World Jam Global Radio, every Saturday. My name's Kervin Julian, and we're out of here.
Thank you, Kervin.
Thank you all.
Imperial Lounge presents an icon.
Reggae dancehall by the beach. To be held at Imperial Lounge, 2 to 14 High Street, Margate Seafront, Kent, CT9 180. To be held on the first Saturday of each month. Your host DJ Matt. Also rotated DJs, Roddy Boone, DJ Happy,
and Younger General.
Doors open 8 p.m. till late. Free entry all night. Music policy, reggae, dancehall, and a touch of soul. On the first Saturday of each month. Reggae dancehall by the beach. At the Imperial Lounge Margate. Do remember, you can also get VIP and Shisha booking. More info on the World Jam Global website. That's www.worldjamglobal.com. Also www.imperialloungemargate.co.uk.
See you there.
It's the right thing you doing. Rebellious like Malcolm. 1, 2, 3, swing it.
Do you have an old sound tape or your favorite cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ, or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday, or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448, or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, doublets, and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
see it, it's here, it's here. You see it. New feature coming from World Jam Global Radio in 2018, World Jam Global Top 10. To vote for your favorite artist, go to twitter.com/World Jam Global or facebook.com/World Jam Global. So pick the right track where you want to have in your car, or your house, or rock. At them.